episode 80. That's kind of weird to say. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
We're hitting those milestones, getting closer and closer to 100, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, episode 80.
Yeah, I got so used to saying 7 something.
23.
Yeah, it's just, well, it's like, it's usually, it's like 2.5 months in each digit, you know?
Yeah.
We are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that posts on your podcast services on Thursday mornings, 6 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're able to leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Podcast Addict, that would be super helpful. It helps us move up charts. More people get to see us. More people get to see that we stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming, where we are live tonight. Today is a Monday night, which means that something interesting or cool is going to happen tomorrow. We're recording on a Monday night because tomorrow is my birthday. The 11th is my birthday, and my wife and I are going out to the Tigers game.
And your dumbass volunteered for some work for that as well.
I volunteered is very strong air
Retail
quotes.
Volunteer of like, well, it would be nice if you worked tomorrow. And it's like, are you telling me? No, I am not.
So there's a couple factors that are going on with that, but it's also just a production standpoint as well as trying to make it as easy as possible on my wife, who obviously does all the editing. So even though she'll say that she could have handled it, but it would have bugged me. So yeah, you can listen to us on Twitch. You can watch us on past broadcasts. You can watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/Digital Days Gaming, or just go to the website, digitaldaysgaming.com, and there's a bunch of links there, or click on the show notes, and there's a ton of links there for our community stuff, and you can check all that out. And we're going to jump right into the news.
Yeah, I promise we won't be doing a check-in every week, though next week technically will be the last week of this lawsuit. At least part one, whatever happens, I'm sure will be rebutted and will go into court on and off for the next couple years.
Some of the randomness that's coming out of this Apple versus Epic stuff, like, is fascinating though, and you have to talk about it.
You have to. Like, I love this sort of stuff. I know Dave does too, because it just adds a lot of like backing to some discussions that we have had about like how business is conducted. And I'm sure Sony and Microsoft are not happy that somehow they are being brought through all of this and having all their stuff.
You've got a couple bullet points in here, which I'm going to have some interesting things to jump on. So I'm going to jump a little bit.
Yeah.
So one of your Epic offered $200 million to get 6 PlayStation exclusives on the Epic Games Store. Obviously, Sony declined, as Horizon and Days Gone have gone to Steam. And then it's changing the page on me a little bit here. But Epic also made contact with Microsoft, but they knew Game Pass would be a conflict of interest, and they didn't even bother with Nintendo.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The thing with Nintendo is like the most interesting one is like, so there was actually like a email that was basically shown in this trial that was like, make an offer to Sony. Dave's trying to set up. Make an offer to Sony and see if we can get their next 6 exclusive, offer them $200 million. Let's be their home for PC games. And they're like, let's reach out to Microsoft, knowing Microsoft is going to reject us because Game Pass is something that they're trying to push. And then they had a bullet point for Nintendo that was just like, this is shooting for the moon. We know this isn't going to happen. We shouldn't even bother, basically, with Nintendo.
Well, which would be super interesting, because I think at that point in time, Nintendo maybe would have wanted some of their games possibly on different platforms. Like, they've kind of been open to the mobile market a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the same games that run on the Switch or the Wii or whatever running on mobile, but I would have, if you would have asked me like 10 years ago, like would I have expected to see like a Mario game on a phone, I would have told you no.
For sure. Nintendo's weird. Like, Nintendo makes deals to put their games on other platforms in China, but that's mostly because it's hard to sell hardware in China, so it's easier just to make it available for the Shield. I believe the Galaxy games are on the Shield.
Yeah. The part that's like super fascinating to me, though, and it kind of circles back to some of the other stories that we've gotten from things that, you know, like the numbers that you talked about last week of games that were shown that Epic paid for to have on the store. Some of them were higher, some of them were lower. And we talked about like Outriders being allegedly a $50 million purchase for Microsoft on Game Pass. I have a really hard time believing that it was $50 million if they're going to Sony and obviously Sony declined this, but and it does. I don't know if Sony declined it because the number was too low or it's just that they didn't want that. I think they just didn't want it. It wouldn't have mattered. Well, the number eventually would have mattered if it was something stupid. But any 6 Sony or any 6 PlayStation exclusives are worth more than $50 million each, in my opinion, to have on a PlayStation store or on a PC storefront. So I mean, we'll never know the numbers unless Game Pass and Microsoft gets sued. But it's super interesting. The part that has been even more interesting to me is like, they've been talking a lot about like the API. Like Apple always says you have to have like some kind of public API, and there's been other app developers like Uber, I believe, is one that have came out and said like, no, we have a private API on the App Store.
Oh yeah, no, they've been making special deals. The thing with Sony, what I think ultimately probably prevented Sony from doing this deal is because Epic wanted 6 games, and Sony probably didn't want to be in a position of like, okay, so do you want the next 6 exclusives? No. We're going to pick random games, which is why you have Horizon and Days Gone. They're trying to bring people to their brand. They never want to let it seem like you can wait it out and get the exclusives on PC.
Right.
Unless, as you said, it was a stupid amount of money that they're just like, you want to give us 2% of Epic? You know, like, because that's what Sony would probably be interested in. Because it's funny, because around this time that they made that offer, Sony had just invested $250 million into Epic. And then Epic is just going to turn around and be like, we'll give you $200 million if you give us your next 6 exclusives. And who knows if they were like, Sony, you pick the exclusives? Or Epic is just like, no, we want your next 6 exclusives, which just wouldn't work for Sony.
It also makes me wonder how the hierarchy or the corporate tree works in Sony Interactive. Yeah. Of where, like, we know that Sony, I believe, Sony Interactive is the one that's purchased the stakes in Epic. And I wonder if, like, the PlayStation branch is treated a little differently to where when Epic maybe goes to Sony and says, hey, like, we want to talk to you about something with your gaming stuff, the person that takes that initial call from Epic goes, oh yeah, no problem, here, we're going to move you down, and you talk to, I'm sure maybe it eventually got to Jim Ryan or somebody up, some corporate figurehead above Jim Ryan, that's of the gaming division side of it, because like there's a movie side of it, there's a gaming side of it, there's a television hardware side of it. I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff,
mobile,
and all of that connects stuff, to all of that connects to the top thing of, I don't even know who the head of Sony Interactive is.
Yeah, I forget his name, which I feel bad because he was the head of PlayStation at one point.
Oh, are you talking about like Kaz Hirai?
Yeah, is it Kaz still?
I think he might have left, but yeah, I think that there are certain things that conversations that maybe he gets involved in, and obviously if they're, I'm sure he was probably involved in that Discord partnership, because that starts to get into some of, like, probably over long-term plans. It probably gets into some of Sony's software side across like televisions and phones and stuff like that as well. But I think that, just from maybe the gaming standpoint of where like that conversation was different, maybe.
Yeah, it's a Kenichiro Yoshida, I believe, is the current one. It has to be that idea that Sony has so many different heads right now, which is why they tightened up the PlayStation brand. We talk about that a lot. Of like,
because it's split off. Yeah. Like if you had Sony, you had I am the end of the line with anything with the word Sony attached to it, and then he has 3 or 4 people that are below him, and then that splits off into PlayStation. Then PlayStation split off into 4 different things, like Japan and Europe and US, and then they're like, you know what, forget that. Like, we're gonna tighten that up, and I'm sure they did it with across the board, probably with TV and mobile.
Oh yeah,
and
they
stuff like
killed their laptop brand.
Yeah.
They their mobile brand. They kind of condensed what they were doing there. So Sony overall just like condensed everything. The thing that I find fascinating, though, about this is Sony just went with Steam, which I wonder if the money just wasn't enough for Epic, and it was just, at the end of the day, they're like, look how many users Steam has compared to Epic Game Store, because Epic Game Store is still trying to build
we'll pick up the extra 18% that we're losing just based on user base.
Exactly. And Valve did change their structure for big publishers and how much big companies can pull from their revenue. So they'll get that deal probably automatically because they're Sony when they went to Steam. Steam wasn't like, oh, you have to build up your sales before we give you a bigger cut. I'm sure Sony was immediately just giving max.
Valve's not dumb. Like, oh wow, Horizon, a game that was a Game of the Year contender at all on another platform. Yes, please.
Yeah, and they took it and they probably gave them the benefit of the doubt, and then Sony can, build the Horizon brand. The Days Gone thing is always a head scratcher of just like build the Days Gone brand that they killed.
I think a lot of it just has to do with the engines they're using right now. Yeah, they port over to PC somewhat successfully or easily.
And the way I feel Sony treats the PC market is they're just throwing them a bone sort of thing, and it like Days Gone is like the most like risk averse thing that they can throw on PC. Like, oh, if it succeeds, cool, we made some extra money off Days Gone. But it's not like if Days Gone has a bad launch on PC, it's not the end of the world, Like Horizon had a bad launch on PC and they had to fix it, but if Days Gone has a bad launch on PC, it'd be like, okay.
Yeah, and it's still sold. Like Horizon still sold really well. It was on top of the charts for 6 weeks.
And it pops up every once in a while. Like it'll get a resurgence.
It'll go on sale and it'll shoot up to the top again.
Yeah. Another weird thing that came from this, which a lot of people were worried that this one aspect may have hurt Epic's case. So as you know, Apple is saying like, oh, we're a walled garden to protect our users from horrible content, from inappropriate content. That's why we have a closed system. And what they're pointing to is on the Epic Game Store, there's an itch.io app. And itch.io is an independent development storefront. So they sell whatever video game you want on there. It's any independent developer can upload their game, set a price, sell their game. And Apple is like, this application has adult games that are so offensive we cannot speak about them here in the court. And apparently this really piqued the judge of just like, oh, what type of inappropriate games? And they found whatever crap name that they can find. And itch.io is like, I think the number came out, there's like 200,000 games on this store. And this is being pointed out to the judge of like, yeah, no, it's the Wild West on the Epic Game Store because of this one application that I'm sure Epic could just pull that application.
Turn off on the apps.
Yeah. But again, that's our idea, people that kind of know how this stuff works, going to a judge who might not know that. And apparently the judge was very fascinated about like these inappropriate games. And the way Apple was spinning it was just like, oh, they're so inappropriate, we can't even talk about it. Which is just going to make the judge be like, oh, how bad is it? And they pulled like random titles of games, and even itch.io is joking about like the games that they have on their service. I mean, nothing terrible, but there's like some like taboo stuff, some like some weird stuff on that storefront.
To be fair, there's some weird games on Microsoft's and Sony's platforms as well. Like some,
but the itch.io, anyone can publish their game on it. I mean, there is some moderation. Obviously, something horrible can't make it to itch.io.
Well, Epic's kind of always been an open source. Like, you can access their engine and make any game you want.
Yeah.
And you can upload it, and they don't really notice you until you start generating a certain amount of sales revenue, and you sign some type of contract when you're using their Unreal Engine that they monetize. Popular. Like FYI, if you didn't really know, Fortnite's a huge moneymaker for them, but I still feel like their engine property and their engine licensing is where their bread and butter is.
That's where like the way I put it is like Fortnite is their side gig that just makes more money than the work that keeps the lights on. Like, I feel. Do
you think that Fortnite makes more money than their licensing of their engine?
Yes, I think it does with peaks. But the thing with Fortnite is it has ups and downs. So okay. I think they can stay operational forever based on their engine things. But Fortnite is where they make like the stupid money sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like okay, so their engine licensing is like the cake, and Fortnite is like all the frosting and the decorations and the
Exactly.
and everything else. That, so, but it's still it's still like you can eat a really really good cake that's not frosted. Now it's better if it's frosted and it's decorated and it looks cooler.
Exactly. Yeah. They're doing well without Fortnite, but Fortnite
Yeah.
is just like all this extra money because Fortnite. Let's be honest, it's not a taxing game. Like that's why it can run on phones and everything like that. Like they do have to put a lot of work to keep it a live service game that changes almost daily.
Right.
But,
and let's also not forget this is the same company that whether you believe in the franchise or don't believe in the franchise anymore made Gears of War. Like
Unreal Tournament,
its, like, right.
a lot of stuff.
In its heyday when Gears of War was considered like campaign and PvP wise like right up almost up there with Halo for a little while. Like whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, it still carried a ton of weight for a while. And this is what has been able to make them get their name out there. So both these companies look bad, but they're just shaking $billion stacks of money at each other.
Oh, no one's
That's
the
all
hero in this case.
Yeah.
It's the battle of the billionaires who are just trying to make a couple billion more.
Yeah.
But we're still getting fun stuff out of it. And I guess next week is when this will be all decided. I think Epic's going to lose this in the long run.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the judge is going to go, look, like you knew what the terms of service were when you essentially got in bed with this company, and now you're complaining.
Yeah.
After you're in this this committed relationship where you both are making a bunch of money off of it and each other, and you're fighting, like get out.
Yeah, it's going to be get out, and then Epic will announce the Fortnite phone, and it'll just turn into a whole thing, or they'll just deal with it and make whatever money they make off Fortnite on iOS when it eventually returns. Because I think no matter what, Fortnite eventually returns to iOS, even though it was the lowest earner financially for them because of the 30% cut.
Right.
But yeah, so that will be the last update until next week, of course. I say that
because something else crazy happens.
No, exactly. So. Like every time,
Yeah.
like I thought it wouldn't get any better than last week in terms of what came out, and then this week is just like, oh, cool. There's even more stuff.
Well, they had like the Microsoft people on there, then and there was a whole bunch of stories like, oh, Microsoft hasn't turned a profit on any console sales. Duh.
Yeah. Every hardware manufacturer except Nintendo, and they actually talked about Nintendo of like, yeah, no one makes profit out of their stuff except Nintendo, because Nintendo gets like the least expensive parts when they're the best option for them, and they turn a profit. But Sony doesn't make a profit on their hardware, and not until a couple years down the road. But then the price drops too,
right?
So then that profit shrinks.
But it's just a matter of like it's the software like for Sony, and it's the software for Microsoft, and whether that software is Game Pass or the software is hard hitting AAA exclusives, like it's still the same. So.
Yep. This one should be a quick one. The Yakuza universe is continuing to expand. The first thing is a sequel to Judgment was announced called Lost Judgment, and that comes out later this year. And then they also said that the Yakuza series is going to stay turn-based. So Like a Dragon started as an April Fool's joke, turned into a real game, turned out to be really popular, and they're just going to run that. So if you want your brawling combat, you can get that in Judgment, which is in the Yakuza universe. Or if you want the turn-based, you can go to Yakuza proper, and they're just going to run with that model for that game.
And I haven't played any of the Yakuza games at all. What was like Yakuza 0 and Yakuza 1? Were they turn-based?
No. So every Yakuza game before Like a Dragon was just a brawler.
Okay.
It was like an action game where it's like hand-to-hand combat. And that's what Judgment was as well. And Judgment takes place in the Yakuza series. They originally, Like a Dragon was supposed to be like a traditional Yakuza game, but they did an April Fool's joke where it's like, oh, we're being turn-based, but the reception was so good that at the last second, they turned it into a turn-based game. I think it was a fresh of breath air for the franchise. So they're just going to continue down that path for the Yakuza mainline series.
So Judgment and the newly announced Judgment sequel are going to be the brawler style.
Yes.
And then what are they up to? Like Yakuza 9, 8 or 9?
Technically, Yakuza Like a Dragon was 7. So this basically was like a backdoor announcement for like Yakuza 8 is going to be turn-based.
Turn-based, okay.
So they're at least kind of splitting the difference, because I know not everyone was a fan of Like a Dragon being turn-based, but I think it brought in...
Yeah, but if they're going off the direction with Judgment, and Judgment already appears to do well enough that we're getting a sequel, like it's coming like in September, right?
Yeah, it's super quick. It's like 2 years.
Yeah, so, I mean, like that's a really, really quick turnaround, so obviously it's profitable and it's shown enough success that they've just decided to take the franchise in through the Judgment series that way, and then they're going to keep going with the Like a Dragon on the main connected storyline.
Yeah, which I think is a great way to handle it. You basically can...
Which also just tells you that Like a Dragon sold like crazy well.
Oh yeah, no, I feel like people that weren't playing the Yakuza games were playing Like a Dragon. I have a horrible habit, outside of the Yakuza games that I reviewed, I would start them and then I would get bored 10 hours in with the brawling combat, but for whatever reason, the turn-based combat kept me in for like 40 plus hours. And like Judgment, I own Judgment. I think the shrink wrap's behind me, like still on the case, because I was like, I don't know if I'm really going to be into a brawler, but I like that they're supporting their fan base, because these are both in universe. These are still Yakuza games.
Well, these are some games that were having a hard time coming over to the States in the first place, right?
Yeah, they went with the whole path, the PS3, PS4 era, where they're like, okay, we're not going to do full translations. We're just going to release them digitally. And then they started to pick up sales, and then they're like, okay, we'll do the full translations again. And, you know, start releasing them physically, and now they're on Xbox, they're on PC.
Yeah, because Jason, who used to write for the PS Nation, he was a huge Yakuza fan. Huge.
Oh, yeah. No, they had, it's very...
Or he still is. He just doesn't do the writing stuff anymore.
Yeah, it was a very small but vocal fan base, and Sega would always kind of come out of like, we want to bring all of them to the West, but no one wants to buy them. And then at one point, that's kind of turned, kind of around the same time, you know, PS3 digital sales started to really spike up, because then it was like a very cost-effective way.
Less risk.
Yeah, they just could release it, and fans were more accepting of playing a game subtitled. So it was even more.
Well, and also they pretty much said like, this is the only way you're going to get this.
Exactly.
Like, we're not gonna press discs, and we're not going to find a publisher in the U.S. to, you know.
And then eventually it sold so well that they're like, oh, actually, you know what? We will dub them. You know, we will do dub and sub.
Right.
And it worked out. So now we're going to get, you know, 2 entries in this probably every other year until that doesn't work for them anymore.
That's cool. That's good. That's amazing. That's great.
The next story is a little for Dave. Kind of came out of nowhere. We don't really have too much information, but I saw you put like a timeline out for what's going to happen. Ubisoft announced that they are going to make a free-to-play Division game called Division Heartland. It's going to be developed by Ubisoft Red Storm, who worked on Rocksmith, Ghost Recon, and looks like they supported other games, but it's so hard with Ubisoft franchises.
Well, they did a lot of work on the Division as well. Specifically, they spent a lot of time working on the Dark Zone in the Division, which is the PvP area in the Division, which I stay away from.
Yeah.
But
when I looked at their thing, it was like every Ubisoft title with guns they ended up working on.
The guy I interviewed, Terry Spear, he's the head of Red Storm.
Okay. Yeah.
Or he's high up in Red Storm, and
they
as they were messing with gear score and stuff, the Red Storm were starting to get their hands on it more and more, and that was the concern of like what was the future of the Division with Massive working on the Avatar game, and now the Star Wars franchise. Like the
Is
Star
the Avatar
Wars
game still happening?
Supposedly it's supposed to be in line with the movie. There's another movie coming.
There's 4. They announced 4 sequels to that fucking garbage ass movie.
I haven't seen anything like formally on it. I hope that we see something at their Ubisoft Forward or E3 that they're participating in with it. But they've got a lot of other stuff that they got to show too. Like they're probably the publisher that I'm the most anticipating in E3, because we still haven't seen anything from Far Cry 6. We still haven't seen anything from Rainbow Six Quarantine or whatever the hell it's called now. I don't think they're going to call it Quarantine.
They're just waiting for us to get out of quarantine and say, welcome back to quarantine.
Right, and then like they're obviously they're probably going to show some type of trailer or something for the Star Wars, or they're going to title it. They're going to like massive presents
and they're
Star
still
Wars.
sitting on
blah, blah,
Skull
blah,
and
blah, blah.
Bones, still sitting on Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Like, yep, there's a lot of cool stuff that they got, along with just the like another. I can't even remember. I must say we got an Assassin's Creed last October, so like we might not get one this year.
Splinter Cell.
There's a lot of. Yeah, and then there's some other stuff that Ubisoft is notorious, whether it comes out or doesn't come out. They're notorious for announcing something in June and saying it's going to come in October, and it always gets delayed to February. But so that's what I'm most like anticipating. But like the future of the Division franchise was kind of up in the air because we didn't like they started with Division 2 and Warlords of New York that did really well, and then they kind of started the seasonal content, trying to do something every 90 days that was hitting for some people and wasn't hitting for others. And then this last March, like 2 months ago, it's like, okay, so like we had Division 1, and then you brought out Division 2, and then you brought out Warlords of New York, and that was all like over a 3 or 4 year time frame. And they're like, okay, so what's next? And they actually came out like a month ago and said like, okay, like we initially weren't going to do this any more content for the Division 2, but it looks like the fan base is clamoring for it enough that they announced that they're going to try to do something. What that is, we still don't know yet. So they're going to probably announce that because they said it's going to come out by the additional Division 2 content will come out by the end of 2021 or very early 2022. With the same time frame that this Heartland free-to-play is getting, that looks like it's just coming to everything.
Yeah, they were vague. It was just consoles, PC, and cloud services. And they're in bed with Amazon. They're in bed with Stadia.
Yeah.
It's coming to everything.
They have their own store. They have their own PC store.
Yeah.
And so they have their... And then the fascinating part is that they have made the promise... going forward, that any of these games that they're releasing, I think it started with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, going forward, especially the next gen ones, are all going to support cross save.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this free to play game, you can play.
What's it called?
Yeah, Ubisoft Connect or something.
Yeah, there you go, Connect.
So they can play like this the Hyperscape, whether it was a hit or miss. It was a miss in my opinion. They're free to play battle royale. But if they bring this out and I can play it on Xbox for a little bit and then take my character and play it on PlayStation or play it on PC, like and it's free, like that's cool. Everybody's like, oh, they're gonna microtransaction the game to death. No shit, it's free to play.
Yeah.
But I think the Division franchise going forward, like it's a really cool thing they have going on there. There's a novel that they're working on. There's a Netflix movie that they're working on. So that stuff is like super fascinating. There's a really cool story there. Like, and the thing that sucks about these games as a service is that even if there is a really cool story there's some players that are like, I don't want to commit 6 months of my life to this game. Like, well, you can just play the campaign, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. So Heartland probably means that they're moving to the middle of the country, I'm guessing. What are your expectations for this game? Because you actually like the Division. I don't mind the Division. I just never got deep into it. It's a competent shooter, but I never got super into it.
As a third-person shooter, I always enjoyed the story. I enjoyed where it went from DC to where it spread into. Where it started in New York and it spread to DC, and then we kind of went back to New York. And I guess to your point, where they're showing like the image that they gave us is like a water tower, which leads you to believe like Central America or like Middle America,
Midwest.
Yeah, Midwest. So I don't know with it being free to play and the Division and the direction that they're going with what they're trying to do. Like, I think when you start dabbling into this many things, everything comes from the same universe, but it doesn't mean it's all connected.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because like they've said like the movie or I can't remember which, I don't have the press release in front of me, but the movie or the book like takes place immediately after the events of Division 2. Mm-hmm. Base campaign. I don't know if that means after Warlords of New York, or if that means after So it'll just be interesting to see. But I do like them coming out and saying like, this is still Tom Clancy's stuff, so this still carries some weight. And everybody's like, oh, I don't want a Division. Like, this is Tom Clancy, like who used to be a really, really good author, and his company is probably still rooted in that core aspects of what made Tom Clancy's books like super realistic, super detailed of tactical stuff. And to do something in a movie or a novel.
Who's running his name? Is it just his kid or is his company? Because I know he's dead, right?
Yeah, he has passed. I don't know who's running his company. I just know that Ubisoft has an amazing contract with his company, because almost everything, like Ghost Recon is a Tom Clancy franchise. I think isn't it technically Tom Clancy Splinter Cell? Technically,
yeah, Rainbow Six as well.
Yeah, so there's a huge like
his name
I knew
still
Rainbow Six was.
weight.
I just couldn't remember if Splinter Cell was.
I believe so.
But his claim to fame, Tom Clancy's claim to fame, has always been super accurate, military tactical stuff, which is exactly what like Rainbow Six is and Splinter Cell was, and Division is. It's gotten a little away from it, but it's nothing crazy. Like you have little drones, and there's nothing that I have ever seen maybe used in the Division franchise that I don't think could actually happen in real life. Everything seems to be plausible.
Yeah, it moves with technology. They might jump a couple years ahead with some of their technology, but most things do that. But yeah, everything is possible in that franchise. When they announced Heartland, I'm just like, you know what? It'll be easy to render cornfields if it comes to it. For an expanded game, because all that Midwest stuff outside of Detroit, Chicago, that shit all looks the same.
Yeah, I just drove straight through Ohio on Saturday and straight south in Ohio on Saturday and straight north of Ohio on Sunday, and it's still flat.
Yeah, you're like, what's outside the window? Corn. We're in Illinois. Turned to wheat. We must be in.
Although I've heard Iowa's worse, but I've never driven through Iowa.
Yeah, no. This flyover those.
Yeah, but I think it's great, and I love the fact that, again, just like I mentioned at the beginning of the story, is like they're getting ahead of this. They're getting some of this minutia crap out of the way before their digital events, and I think that's great.
Yeah,
because it's like you heard about. Here's a clip of Heartland, and it's not now. They don't have to explain what Heartland is and that it's going to be free to play. It's like that's done. Okay, here's the game.
And it also puts pressure on them, though, of like you have to show us gameplay now. You can't just show us a card that says Heartland because you just did that on Twitter, on a Monday afternoon or whatever it was. So they have to show gameplay. But if they do it like last year where they did, 2 Ubisoft forwards? Like they did one in the summer.
Within like 90 days of each other?
Yeah, it was like beginning of summer, end of summer. So they have time to do gameplay, and I'm sure we'll get like a Far Cry focused one. And then now this.
Do you think that Far Cry is coming out this year?
It was supposed to, right? In February?
Yeah, it was supposed to come out in February.
I think it has to at this point, unless something major happens.
Do they want to put that up? Like, so, I mean, they've done it before, but are they going to put like Far Cry up against an Assassin's Creed?
Do we know for sure an Assassin's Creed is even happening this year?
No, but...
I think they're doing that every other year thing for Assassin's Creed. So when was the last Assassin's Creed? Was it last year? No, 2 years ago.
Valhalla was last year.
Yeah, Valhalla was last year, so they're off this year.
Okay.
So they would have to put something out.
I mean, I guess, maybe that's why they chose to delay it, because maybe whatever they had, like, the Rainbow Six whatever, like, that's a completely different genre. Far Cry is and isn't. I consider some of the stuff you do in Far Cry similar to Assassin's Creed, I guess, but I'm also not, I don't want to make that broad statement of all Ubisoft games are the same.
I will.
Because I don't think that's true.
They mostly are. But they're good at what they do. I'm not going to knock those games. I'm not going to say those games are bad, but like I could never play multiple Ubisoft games at one time because I'm just like, oh, okay. I have a sword and now I have a gun and I'm still climbing a tower. But they're good games at that if you're into, that specific genre that they're in. And I think we'll talk about it in the next story. I think they can get away with releasing a couple games this fall because I have a feeling some first-party games from the console manufacturers are going to move based on the next story. Sony, in a financial call, have said that they expect the kind of shortage and high demand for PS5s to last through 2022. So the current world we live in, where PS5s come and go every week or two, and they only last for 2 minutes, Sony sees that to be the case until 2022 or through 2022. The reason they are saying that is the demand is really high, and there's also still a shortage of conductors. So they are making as many as they can, but they can't keep up with the current demand, and they don't see them being able to surpass the demand until, I guess, 2023. If you haven't bought a PS5, strap in, follow Wario, follow Tech Radar, follow all of these Twitter
There's
accounts.
a specific Twitter account at PS5 in stock or something.
Yeah, restocks, I think.
That's where my wife had all of her success with. Essentially, just follow that account, turn the notifications on. They essentially only tweet when the console is in stock, as well as I think the charging station and the headphones, like, because those are kind of hard to get your hands on too. So that's one of those things where if you're in a situation where maybe you work from home or you sit in front of a computer and your phone beeps and you can click on it and do it, you might have some success. That's where we've gotten a couple things, but they've also, like, Target gets them at, like, some reason, like Target always gets them at like 8 o'clock in the morning, like on a Tuesday.
Amazon does 3 a.m. on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Every site, I think Best Buy does like 8 a.m. Early, usually before like stores open. So I guess they can have them ready for pickup that day. But yeah, basically it just comes down to the demand and just the shortages we're having right now because of COVID. There was some news that Sony, they verified they sold 7.8 million units as of March 31st. That sounds like Crazy. It's just a little bit better or on par with the PS4's first year. And they feel like it will surpass the PS4's first 2 years, which I believe was like 14 or 15 million units sold.
I think both of these consoles are doing really well, and it would be really... I feel like if you're an executive at either one of these companies, you're probably just like, man, like, what could this have been without the pandemic?
Oh, for sure. If they weren't in like a dogfight for parts with all their competitors.
Well, is Microsoft come out and said that they're having a chip problem?
No, but every company is having issues. I think Microsoft is just playing it closer to the chest of just like, yeah, we're having problems. We're not going to say we're having problems because Xboxes are still slightly easier to get than PlayStations. Just slightly, in terms of like it sells out.
I think it's the same thing that we talked about a couple weeks ago, where I think that if Sony releases 100 units, they're all put up on a Wednesday. Microsoft releases 100 units and 33 are available on a Monday, 33 on a Wednesday, and 33 on a Friday.
No, definitely, yeah. Microsoft is spreading out. The Microsoft store, I think, had like 3 drops last week, just their store alone.
And they're their own worst enemy because you can't. It's available for all access, or it's available this way. So they're their own worst enemy with that. And then obviously, like, Sony doesn't have any really control what GameStop does, but like GameStop stuff is just like ridiculous with like those bundles and things.
Oh God, yeah, some of the bundles are outrageous. I was looking at
my wife's actually had my wife's had a couple of them, and she's like. She's like talking to me, and like by the time we make a decision, it's usually gone. But it's like, do we get the extra? Like, what could be like? Well, Jonathan could use the controller. I go like, Sackboy's cool. Like, Owen might want to play that. We could flip the console for the cost of the And then she's like, it's out. I was like, okay.
The bundles are kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I'm looking for a digital, but it's not a priority. I'm not like freaking out. I have Wario and someone from Tech Radar like on notifications, but I'm not like.
I don't. How do you take Wario on notifications, man?
It's kind of worth it though. Sometimes there's some really good shit.
No, for sure. Especially the price. I guess it is worth it when you get that one or two tweets a week that, like in your case, if you get the console, or he's always on top of those price errors that go away like after an hour.
And I've jumped on a couple of those every once in a while. So I just have notifications turned on. I'm not like struggling to try and find a digital edition. It's just like a first world problem I have where I'm just like, if I can get one, I can get one.
He's gonna see one return to his store and he's gonna pounce on it.
That's how all of my coworkers have gotten it. As soon as an order gets canceled, it's a mad scramble to go find that canceled order because it doesn't
find it now
because it doesn't get popped back into the inventory right away because it has to be sold through the website. It's hilarious to watch. There's a rumor going around that there will be a new SKU for the PS5 next year. People were really making a big deal out of this. It's just they're cutting down on like the CPU, like it's a 7 nanometer now, and the new one is a 6 nanometer. This isn't going to change the form factor of the system. This isn't going to drop the price. It's going to make it a little more profitable probably for Sony, but we're talking about like cents like dollars.
Do you think it's going to affect performance at all?
No, because it's the same CPU. It's just they shrunk it just a little bit.
Okay.
So I don't even think this is going to be like a model change. This is just going to be like the PS3 when there was like an 80 gig model, 60 gig model, and then you'd have to, there was like 2 different 80 gig models, 2 different 60 gig models, and you just have to check like when it was made.
This one will have a watch battery last 4 more days.
Exactly. So I saw people jumping on this story, but in reality, it's just like, this happens a lot. Like
this is probably something that came out of an earnings call, like
basically, yeah.
Of like, hey, we're gonna be able to like maybe make these a little bit cheaper. Maybe instead of taking this much of a loss, we're gonna take this much of a loss. Like,
this either came out of a Sony thing or an AMD thing. Of AMD being like, oh yeah, we made new parts that are gonna be a little smaller.
The fact of the matter is, we're getting damn near close to these things being out for a year, and whether you like it or not, the memory cards for the Microsoft things are out. They're $200, which sucks, but they're $200 and you can get them. And Sony's just like, what expandable storage?
Well, that's why I'm picking up Mass Effect this week. I'm picking it up on the Xbox. Also, there's 120 frames on the Xbox, but mostly I'm picking it up because.
Okay, so you just mentioned it. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, you and I are. If you really cut into us, like it's we bleed Sony. Like if you really like we bleed PlayStation.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where our roots came from. But Resident Evil runs better on Xbox. Mass Effect's gonna run better on Xbox. Like when does Sony have to turn on this 120 hertz thing?
I mean, they have to do it eventually, but I don't think that's where their interests are because they're still beating Microsoft in sales, so it's not a priority for them. I think they're really afraid to like turn that on or like do the expandable memory because that's going to turn up the heat on the console. And this thing is like, I have a feeling the fan in the fucking PS5 is a killer. Not hardware, but like it is it's going to be loud when they kick.
And you think 120 hertz is going to make it the fan run?
It's going to maybe make it run a little bit. And then when they unlock the expandable storage, because one thing people don't know, or they know, some people know, but a lot of people don't realize.
CPU pull.
Yeah, specifically with the expandable memory, the M.2 chips run hot as hell, and there's no fan on that expandable storage spot. You're gonna have to rely on just a heat sink, which is why I think they said that they're gonna also
only approve drives,
and also there's gonna be a fan update when they do the expandable hard drive thing. So I think a lot of people are going to run into the thing where they're going to have to decide, do I want more storage or do I want a quieter console?
That's crazy.
When that happens, this isn't a humble brag, but which is why I'm glad I went with both consoles this generation, is because it's like, okay, it's going to basically be like the 360 PS3 era where I have my PS3 for the exclusives and you have your 360 for the third-party games. Because we're seeing some third-party games are running better. Though it's kind of hit or miss, because sometimes games you expect to run better on Xbox run bad, and then they run really good on a PS5. And I think that's just a matter of like partnerships and relationships that are happening. So it sucks that like some games run better, like the 120 frames on Mass Effect is kind of a big deal for someone, but 60 frames is what you want. And if it can run 60 frames consistent on PS5, you're not losing anything really. I'm mostly picking Mass Effect because I need hard drive space on my PS5. So I'm going to throw it on my Xbox. It has.
I'm in the reverse situation though, because like my Xbox like feels like super fast. Like if I download anything or like it's like I have to now. Granted, I can, and I don't know if I can do this on the PS app, so I'm not 100% for sure. But I can delete stuff and install stuff on the app on my Xbox like super easy.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about on the.
I know I can buy and install games on the PlayStation app, but I don't know if I can delete something. And the Xbox app is clunky, but it works. And so it's kind of one of those things where like if I decide like I'm at work and I wanted to check something out, I can just delete something and then install something, and it just does, and it works really well, and I'm really impressed with it. I'm kind of at the point where like I catch myself looking at memory cards for the Xbox, and I'm like,
you don't need it.
I'm gonna do that. If I'm gonna do that, I'm just gonna buy an X and sell my ass.
Honestly, you're better off just getting an enclosed SSD. That's basically what I do on the PS5. So. Yeah. You probably have SSDs lying around your house right now.
I know.
And that's what I did.
Just have to look.
I had a A terabyte.
Actually, to be honest with you, I'm sure I've got a dev that gave me one.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I was looking.
Not gave me one, but it was like footage capture, and they're like, "Yeah, just keep it."
No, that's what I did. Like, I found like an SSD I have that had some footage from a random game that I remember them being like, "Just keep it. We don't care. We write that off at the end of the year." And then I just grabbed a $10 enclosure off Amazon, and that's my external for the PS5. And the loading times are really good off an SSD. And I'm gonna probably do the same thing with my Xbox. I might partition the same drive. I wonder if I could do that. That's another thing. Basically use the same drive but have two different partitions on it, one for the PlayStation, one for the Xbox. I think I could probably do that.
No, interesting.
I might mess around with it.
So yet again, like I think we're at 3 weeks in a row.
I know, might have to kill this
in
feature.
the what's delayed section. Yeah. As soon as you kill it though, something's gonna get delayed.
So we'll just keep it here. Nothing's delayed.
So nothing's been delayed. So that's awesome. So what we're planning on watching. So again, a lighter week for me. I know I was on vacation, but I got my second vaccine shot, and I don't really think it made me feel any different. But my wife is like, she noticed like for like 3 days, like, and I don't know if it's a combination of me being on vacation, but she's like, you were just very sluggish. Like she's like, you were not even motivated. I literally probably laid on the couch a whole bunch and just watched way too much Smallville. Like, and it was I'm not even like super invested into the story. I'm just kind of like, it's just there, and it's interesting, and each episode is they're starting to get a cohesive story, but like I've said before, each episode is its own thing. So it's actually just, it's almost to the point where it's getting irritating for me now, because I'm like, okay, like this Lana Clark thing is just like getting annoying.
Welcome to teen dramas, because you're watching a teen drama. I was gonna say that
I know.
When you watch like commercials on TVs and they're talking about depressants, I'm pretty sure "Do you watch Smallville for hours on end" is like one of the things that they warn.
But I mean, like I drove down to Kentucky and back. We made it like a whole kind of like family trip out of it. So that was like Saturday and Sunday, and then Monday I got the second shot. And then full disclosure, family, like I bought Owen a bunk bed and was working on his bedroom. I got a desk. If you're watching on Twitch, it's here in the background. You can see it. That I'm still kind of trying to work on my office a little bit more. So, and it was just kind of like, it was my first time taking any significant amount of time off of work since like Halloween last year. So it was just kind of turned into a little bit of a veg fest. We still watch some of our basic stuff. I did watch Mortal Kombat.
Okay. We'll talk about that.
Partially because we're going to try to do a Patreon thing for it. And then partially because I think it actually goes away after like 30 days. So I'm like, I better watch this before it goes off of HBO Max. So, I'm not a huge Mortal Kombat guy, and there was some stuff that I thought was going to happen, and I'm like, and then there's a thing at the end. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So that I did not expect it to go that way. I thought something was evolving into something that it wasn't. But that's neither here nor there. My wife watched it with me actually, and she only like hit her head like 3 times. Like she put her shirt over her head like at the very beginning, and it's got some pretty cool gore to it. Fight scenes were good. I guess I don't know as much about Mortal Kombat as I thought I did, because I for sure had to watch something afterwards just to help me. And then I guess my wife mentioned like maybe I should watch some of the older ones.
The first one is worth watching. Don't watch Annihilation.
Okay. And then we also watched The Mitchells versus the Machines on Netflix. Mm-hmm. I think it's a Pixar movie.
No,
I believe.
No, it's a DreamWorks, I believe.
DreamWorks. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
It was good. It was definitely, up into current events. And it's a good watch. I mean, if you have kids, it's a definite watch. Owen.
Oh, it's a Sony. It's a Sony movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that at the beginning. Owen actually watched with us, and it held his attention. He's 5, so that's a pretty big deal for almost the whole 2 hours, and he had already seen it at his babysitter's house. But it's good. It's on Netflix. It's definitely worth a watch. So that dabbled a little bit in Destiny. There's a new season of Destiny starting Tuesday the 11th, so that'll be something to check out. That was pretty much it. I messed around with Returnal a little bit more, but Returnal is really, really good. It just requires more attention than I was willing to give it right now. if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm still playing Returnal,
and I'm still scared because I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but every once in a while, every like 2 days, I see something on Twitter about somebody going, "Oh, I had a great run and the game crashed on me," and I'm like, and then they release that patch and they're like, "Oh wait, sorry, we got to roll that patch back," and they're like, "Don't play the game." They literally said, "Do not play this game until we release a new patch."
Yeah, and they did.
And I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
and they got it out pretty quick, but
it corrupted saves for some people.
Do not play. They're like,
luckily I was working in that like day or two span that happened, to where I avoided that like the plague. And my PS5 doesn't auto update sometimes, which is weird. Sometimes like
it doesn't update if the game isn't on your tile, like so on. I don't know what to call this, but the main screen, like the homepage, like the games have to be on there. I don't know how many it holds. I want to say like 5.
I'd say 8.
It feels like
I think it's 8.
And because that happened to me with Returnal last week when I went to go play it. It wasn't installed, and then I said like I was actually like, and then it's like, oh okay, you can play, and I played, and then I got to a certain point where like, you haven't downloaded all the game yet. I'm like, what the? I've got pretty good internet.
Yeah, like, no, I've had some problems where just some games just don't want to patch, but like I'm really enjoying the loop of Returnal. Someone in our Facebook group put advice of just like, just have runs where you're not trying to beat the game. Just like,
Matt Lowe did that. There's a really cool, like there's like 30 or 40 comments in it. There's a really cool Returnal thread in our Facebook group of like people going, I just, like taking the temporary currency and turning it into permanent currency. Even if I know I can only play for like 20 minutes, I just go and run around the first biome and grab a whole bunch of stuff and exchange it. And I'm like, huh.
That's basically what I've done. Like I haven't left the second biome, but like I'm grinding out that first biome and just trying to build as much as I can, so then I can just like hopefully coast through the game past that point. But this game is just making me think this is what like Metroid fans have been wanting like Nintendo to do, is like something different with Metroid, or anything with Metroid, but on a big AAA scale. And I feel those vibes completely when I'm like playing Returnal, of just the map design, the procedurally generated stuff works really well. Like I haven't had a map that's like, oh, this is kind of broken. Or specifically like just looking at the map, I think is really well done. Like, cause the maps can sometimes be very vertical. And when you hit the menu option and you go to the maps and you're like moving the camera around, you can see exactly where you need to go, or you need to see how something's structured. And I really enjoy like that aspect of it, of just basically finding the signal in the first biome and then backtracking to being like, okay, let me go clear all these other doors. Now I know where the boss is. Now let me backtrack so I can like level up as much as possible, even if the boss is going to smack me down.
The FOMO feel too, of like when you're like, oh, the boss is there, but there's a door over there that I haven't been through, and then you go over there and that there's nothing in the door.
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh, damn it. But then if you like in your mind though, like you go back into another room and you're like, there's a door over there, and you're like, well, the last door didn't have anything, so if I skip that one, but then you're like, if I skip it and there's a really cool thing in there, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah. Like the only thing that I wish the game did better is when you're comparing guns. I feel like it's not the most straightforward thing. Like there's usually like,
and I think it's because it doesn't like it. They're in their mind. They're like in 60 minutes, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like there's usually just 3 categories, and like the things go up. But sometimes I just look at the gun stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, like let me just shoot this gun and see what happens. But I don't know. I think the game is like really interesting though when you get like. Because I don't know if there's a limit to how many parasites you can have, but I think at one point I had like 4 or 5 parasites on my body, and I just thought it was hilarious.
It's definitely going to be a Game of the Year contender, but it's going to get. I'm sorry, it's just going to get buried.
I don't know. I think we're not going to have that many games come out this year, so it might not, unless Sony releases another first-party game. I mean, Ratchet will be out there, but Ratchet's one of those games I feel like people really love, but it's never really in the Game of the Year conversation. So Returnal might be able to stick around just because 2021 is going to be kind of
I guess that's true. But I mean, I don't know. Like if Ubisoft at this point in time, like what are they going to try to shove like 4 or 6 games into the fall?
Yeah,
I mean, not that any of them are either, but I always find that, I guess God of War was the exception for me, but these games that come out February, March, April always seem to just get buried.
Yeah, I think this one, depending on how they plan to, I know this isn't a live service game, but depending on what their plan is for like updates, in terms of like, will there be an expansion this holiday or something like that? Because this is definitely an interesting enough premise and universe that if they can add like a new biome for free, or if they, have a paid thing, that could bring a livelihood to this game, in a couple months. Because I think the gameplay is great. Like it is a Housemarque game, but on a bigger scale.
They definitely pulled the asymmetrical card down into a third-person view, and they nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I really like it. I think some of the enemy types are they all are kind of the same for the most part. But
it looks like it sold really well, too. We saw, like, April's PSN download numbers or whatever, and it charted at, like, number 3 already, which is I believe it's directly from Sony's digital downloads, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't super surprising, since it's essentially that MLB and that were like the only thing you could buy that was PS5 only.
Yeah. So like Returnal is one of those games I'm trying to see if I can beat the game, but I don't know if I want to necessarily beat the game, if that makes sense, because I'm kind of just having fun dicking around in like the first and second place. But I'm trying to clear my plate before Mass Effect comes out, because we'll talk about Mass Effect a little bit with the questions later, but like I'm hoping I can focus on Mass Effect when Mass Effect comes out later this week. So I'm going to put more time into Returnal the next couple days and see how far I can get. I might just go for it and see if I can beat the game instead of dicking around with it as I'm getting closer to Mass Effect. I'm doing all this to clear my plate before Mass Effect, and I'm not going to watch. Either I'm not going to get Mass Effect, or I'm just not going to get that into Mass Effect.
You're going to be like, old game is old.
Yeah, old game is old, but old game is now pretty, but still old.
Yeah.
I am dabbling in Monster Hunter Rise, which is something I shouldn't be doing before Mass Effect. But I gameflied it like 2 weeks ago, and it's just been sitting in the envelope. I think I need to cancel my Gamefly, because it's just become the thing where it's like, oh yeah, I have a Gamefly game sitting around here somewhere. But started that, really like the music. I love you can have a dog and a cat and an owl. They really throw you for the cute animals right away. So I'm enjoying that. The only thing that's kind of bumming me out with Monster Hunter is Monster Hunter World looked really good on the PS4 Pro, and it looks really good running on the PS5 and an Xbox. So playing this game on the Switch, it just looks bad compared to those games, and I'm having a hard time getting over that. Gameplay wise, they've added some really good mechanics to it, which are probably in older Monster Hunter games, but Monster Hunter World was my first Monster Hunter game, so like the bug wire or whatever it's called, cool new feature, but I'm sure someone can correct me and be like, that actually was in the PSP and the Vita games, and I'll be like, cool. It's new to me, and I really like that.
You're gonna upset QWERTY.
Yeah. He'll be the one to correct me on that. So just.
Actually, sir.
Yeah. Or if Andy was watching.
Yeah.
Enjoying Monster Hunter Rise. Don't know if I'm going to stick with it because okay, it is new to this game, he said, though.
Okay.
I will see if I stick through it. I did get a Pro controller like 2 months ago, so I'm finally using that again to play with it, because I cannot play it with the Joy-Cons. I tried in handheld mode. So dabbling with Monster Hunter Rise.
Keep in mind that depending, like, I don't know if you would or wouldn't want to do this, is that, and it's still a small screen, but you can connect the Pro controller to the Switch and play it.
Yeah,
in handheld mode with the Pro controller.
Yeah,
like I guess like on the screen.
I bought like a third-party dock so I can have 2 Switch docks, so I just move it between different TVs and monitors. Because there's one that I got off Amazon that is like really small that I could just fit on my desk. That's pretty much it. Just watching random movies for the most part. MasterChef Australia started, I guess, like a month ago. So catching up on MasterChef Australia, which is superior to every other MasterChef I've seen, because they're all so nice and they spend way more time. It was like last season I watched in quarantine, it was like 60 episodes compared to like the 20 episodes they do in the US. So you spend a lot of time with this cast, which makes it more enjoyable.
Yeah. Mythic Quest season 2 is on Apple TV. Like episode 1 and 2 are out.
I have to figure out because Sarah has an iPhone with Apple Care, so I think she gets Apple TV.
I wouldn't say it's like a great show. It's got its funny moments.
There's enough things on Apple TV now, like TV show wise,
Yeah.
that I should probably just check.
Well,
it
it's
out.
gotten to the point where my wife said we were watching Mythic Quest the other night, and she said, and this kind of surprised me with how much she enjoyed it, but she literally said, whenever this expires, we're gonna re-up it just for Ted Lasso. And I was like, really? And she's like, yep. So
Yeah, everyone really likes Ted Lasso, but I don't like soccer. I don't like college football, and I don't like Jason Sudeikis. So I don't know.
say there is almost zero college. There is zero college football in it. There is 10% of the show is soccer.
But 100% is Jason Sudeikis. So it's like, that's my thing where everyone's like, it's really good. And I'm like, I think I would like this, but I don't like any of the elements. I just get Vietnam flashbacks of Coach, that garbage ass show. That it's a 90s or 80s sitcom.
I know
Coach.
what Coach is, but I'm trying to correlate the two actors. The show.
I don't
two
know.
shows
Just
together.
like when I just think of like a comedy series with like a college football coach, even though I know that's not like the main part of it, I just think of the show Coach. And as a child, Coach was like the worst show.
I'm gonna send you my Apple logon if you can't figure out the iTunes things,
Yeah.
and I want you to watch 2 episodes of Lasso and tell me that you're not liking the show.
I might take you up on that just because like if as long as it's better than Coach, because like anytime Coach would get on,
It's better than Coach.
because anytime I would hear the theme song for Coach as a 5-year-old, I would get angry because that.
Do you listen, Angela? You need to add that in the middle of this. Like, just play it in the background while he's talking. Just to,
One of the worst shows ever. Like that and like
oh my gosh! Like,
what was that garbage ass comedy about like pilots?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name.
Put
of
them
it.
in the same
yeah.
in the same thing. I don't God. Weens. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Weens.
yes.
Yeah. Those are trash ass shows.
All right, so if you got, you know what, all this other random crap that Michael has said that we would have to do for Patreon episodes, I will 100%. If somebody pledges to the $7 tier within the next month, Michael will have to watch like 7 episodes of Coach.
Oh God, like I don't know. It just seems like the most unfunny. Like I don't know why. I just think when you tell me,
We might even just randomly do that just for a bonus episode on the free tier, just to.
when you like tell me like, oh, what's the first thing that comes to your head when you think of Coach? I think of wood paneling. I don't know why. Like I just think of.
Do you hate like step-by-step sitcom? Like the TGIF?
So,
Like
no, I like TGIF.
Perfect
Yeah,
Strangers?
Perfect Strangers, good show, prequel to Family Matters.
Okay.
I'll enjoy that.
Okay.
Step by Step has one of the worst theme songs ever, but I like it. That whole show was fucking trash too, to be completely honest. But like honestly, if anyone's getting offended because I said Coach sucks and Step by Step is a bad show, like really look at your life. Really consider how you define your personality. Because if Coach and Step by Step insults really get to you, wow.
But then he also thinks Mighty Ducks is like the top sports movie of all time.
Yes, Goon would be number 2. If the best sports movies are hockey movies, I don't know why that's the case, but yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But yeah. But if we're
Did you play or watch anything else that wasn't
but
trash?
if we're talking about like god tier TGIF shows, it's gonna go like Boy Meets World.
Okay, that's fine.
Family Matters. Did they have a crossover with Boy Meets World and Family Matters? I think they might have at one point. This is my brain just going weird. Sabrina was pretty good, but like
You thought Sabrina the Teenage Witch was a good show?
no. But like, are you saying that TGIF shows are good shows, or are we just ranking TGIF shows?
Well, isn't Full House like at the top then?
No. Oh no, Full House is like
Oh my
mid tier. I don't. Dave Coulier is one of the most annoying human beings, and John Stamos is just even more annoying than
Oh
him.
my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So
There is a small age gap between us that changes a lot of stuff.
apparently you think these were good shows. I mean,
well, where do you think Boy Meets World is a good show, or is it a good TGIF show?
Well, there's different eras of Boy Meets World that I would rank differently. I think middle school era of Boy Meets World is better than college and high school era. So to me, Boy Meets World gets broken into 3 tiers. So middle school Boy Meets World and high school Boy Meets World, good shows. College Boy Meets World, bad show.
Did you ever watch Girl Meets World?
God, why would I do that? Like, no, I'm not going to either. It's a Disney laugh track, a modern Disney show. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
No.
All right. So questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. Maybe we'll get some interesting ones after this conversation.
Yeah, please. If you dislike Coach, just use the hashtag #FuckCoach.
Oh my gosh.
And send it to @DigitalDaysGaming. Worst theme song ever. Worst show ever. It's just like if you were like, I don't know, you're like, hey, let's make a show that's all burgundy and wood panel. And that's your set design. Frasier is a better show than Coach. Cheers is a better show than Coach.
I agree. All right. So Anthony writes in, I think he put this on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
He goes, I found myself rediscovering Pinball FX again after putting it down for years. I think my problem was that I spread my collection out over both consoles. I considered starting fresh and purchasing the entire collection on the Series X under Pinball FX3, a game I didn't play. I stopped at FX2. So before I made such a large purchase, I jumped on YouTube and did a search of Pinball FX. I was surprised to learn that there is a new 4K iteration in the works, and apparently it isn't very far off for release. It's possible you discussed this game on the show and I missed it. If not, I would love to hear some in-depth discussion on this series. I know it's a long shot, but a developer interview would be great. I'd also like to hear the host's opinions and past experiences, if any, on games/tables. First of all, I can 100% reach out for a developer interview. I have no problem doing that. However, I don't like pinball.
So I was really into Zen Pinball on the PS3 era.
Well, we came from a place that had a massive tournament.
I'm sure they did. I wasn't that into. I bought a couple Zen Pinball tables and everything. I think Zen Pinball turned into Pinball FX, and that's probably where I dropped off. But I've always liked actual pinball more than virtual pinball. And I think that's just because, I think 2 of the major pinball companies are in Illinois, so there's a lot of places to play pinball in Chicago. And one of the places by my old apartment would have new pinball machines pretty often. So I would enjoy playing pinball in person more than virtually. But I can't name any tables that come to mind, at least from the Zen Pinball era, because that was about 10 years ago. But I wouldn't mind talking to developers about pinball, just because it's kind of fascinating, because companies still make pinball tables, and they only produce 2 or 3 a year. And
I've seen some VR stuff for pinball too that looks super interesting.
Yeah, that stuff's been pretty fascinating.
The only pinball that I remember playing at gaming wise at a video game wise at any kind of length of time was Sonic Pinball.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one that I have any.
Spinball? Yeah.
Sonic Spin. It was Sonic Pinball.
Yeah.
So other than that, I wouldn't say that I think the tables look super cool. I've seen all the tables. I think I've even gotten some packages through some E3 presentations that I've been through, and I'd have to look through my library and see what I do or don't have. And I've messed with them a little bit, but to sit there and I to be 100% honest with you, I feel like I would lose interest if I had more than a 10-minute run.
I could see that. There was also, what was it? Pinball
Arcade?
Pinball Heroes, I believe, was on PSP and Vita. I remember playing those because that's where.
Because couldn't you turn your Vita
or your PSP
vertical?
side? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think they had an Uncharted table. They're probably because he likes pinball games, he's probably like, all those pinballs were bad, but like I enjoyed them. And now I'm kind of like, maybe I should try some pinball games on my Switch, because I'm pretty sure the pinball games on the Switch, you turn vertical as well. You might have just put me down a rabbit hole.
Ultimately, Anthony, I have no problem looking into who develops Pinball FX and reaching out to them and seeing if they're willing to do a show.
I believe it's Zen Studio.
We can Zen, yeah. So we can definitely dig into that a little bit more, but that's kind of where we're at with pinball, I feel like. Lebetsky on Twitter, with Mass Effect coming out this week, it has me thinking about games or series that are super popular that I have never played. For me, it's Mass Effect, Red Dead series, and Kingdom Hearts. Oh, funny, me too. Any games or series is like that. For you guys, should I give Mass Effect a try? I would, right off the bat, I would say give Mass Effect a try. Yeah, it's arguably been there. There's a ton of people that are on my Twitter timeline are talking about it, and it's probably considered to be right up there with like people's fascination with like Halo and some of these, and God of War and all these things. Like it's top tier, revolutionary what it did for its time. And
you're getting the best version of Mass Effect with the Legendary Edition. So yeah, I agree. You might as well give it a try now. Like, don't play them on Game Pass. Like, play the Legendary Edition, get the updated mechanics, try and enjoy those. But Dave, what about series that you haven't, franchises you haven't tried that aren't Kingdom Hearts?
There's a couple people that I follow on Twitter. Somebody I'm working on getting on the show as well. He's playing Kingdom Hearts right now, and he's raving about it. And he had never played it before, and he's just raving about it. Again, I feel like it's a series that I could play and Owen could watch.
No, that's what I was going to suggest. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he'll ask you weird questions of like, what's happening? And then you'll be like, I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, Kingdom Hearts is up there. Mass Effect is up there. I just don't feel like I have the time to commit to Mass Effect right now. And maybe it'll be something I play in a summer or fall lull. Yeah, right.
So, you'll hit Game Pass in 6 months, so then you'll at least have it on your system.
Yeah. Is it going to do that?
It's going to be on EA Play. Like, every EA game comes out 6 months to a year after release date.
Yeah, I'm definitely waiting then. I'm definitely waiting.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll be 6 months or a year, but it'll come to Game Pass eventually.
Yeah.
For me, it's like Halo and Gears are two franchises that I just never jumped into. Like, I dabbled with Halo, like 1 and 2, doing like local multiplayer at a friend's house, but never went through like the campaign in full. So those are two big ones that I would say I'm more interested in going through Halo than I am going through Gears of War. Gears of War just never did anything for me, like the art style, story, characters, from what I've seen. And then Mass Effect, like I've dabbled in Mass Effect and have never finished a Mass Effect, or I can't even consider my dabbling playing Mass Effect. So I'm picking that up this week.
Yeah, in my mind, like Mass Effect seems to be like right up there in terms of like I enjoy third person. Like when Mass Effect came out, my gaming tendencies weren't in that direction. Now they are.
Yeah.
So,
and then the big one that Dave always gets mad, Zelda. Like I've never really played a Zelda game, but it's just because I don't know, it just never has really done anything for me. The Zelda games.
There are plenty of people.
See, look how heated he gets. Like he gets so heated.
There are plenty of PlayStation fanboys that will agree with you. Yeah. So,
look how angry and aggressive he is. It's like he told me to watch Coach. I can't deal with this.
Go look at his Twitter profile today and look at what he quote tweeted with me for questions and tell me who's passive aggressive and angry.
I'm thinking those are some good questions. I was like, hey. Let's get.
You almost got a Magic Mike movie reference back at you.
I don't even know what that would have been. I'm just saying.
You don't know what Magic Mike is?
Oh yeah, it's a stripper movie. You like that movie?
Yeah. I haven't seen that movie, but you were referencing movies that were with my name on it.
Yeah, I can only think of 2 movies. It was Dave and Meet Dave, and I have no idea if they're connected. They could be. I don't know. I'm hoping you would know. This saying, send Dave related questions to
oh my gosh. All right, this one will spark an interesting conversation because I think I know what your answer is, but I'm not 100% for sure. So Stefan Wren writes, what is the best theme park in the U.S. and have you been?
So he said theme park, so I immediately gravitate towards the theme thing, so I go with Disneyland, Disney World. I'm poor, so I've never been to Disney World. I've only gone to Disneyland because Disney World's 4 parks, and holy shit that you need to spend forever to like actually enjoy all 4 parks. So for me, it's Disneyland because I'm more interested in the theme. I know, like I've been to Six Flags, but like Six Flags is this kind of.
What would you call what type of park do you call Six Flags?
Amusement park. So like I know, like I think Cedar Point is like the famous park in terms of like all the thrill.
Cedar Point's the answer.
Yeah, all the thrill ride roller coaster stuff.
World record, fastest things, like the biggest drops.
But as far as I know, there's not really like there's no immersion, there's no themes really. It's just like, yo, here's a big roller coaster, here's a big roller coaster, here's a big
there
roller
are
coaster.
no themes, and I guess like so I guess that. I'm not sure what he's referencing.
I'm assuming
he
means everything.
Themes is themes. I agree with you. Is Disney.
That's what I look for in a park.
Yeah, and it would be Disney World is better than Disneyland. Yeah. I've never been to Disneyland. I've been to Disney World.
Fucking rich guy over here.
But okay, yeah. But yeah, it's Cedar Point, and have I ever been? I've been to Cedar Point multiple times. I'm going to Cedar Point in the next 30 days.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like the place to go for roller coasters.
I would love to take Michael to Cedar Point, but I don't think he can ride most of the rides.
Oh yeah, 6 people that are 6 feet tall can't ride the rides. No, well, it's funny though, because like when I went to like Six Flags, like which like the Six Flags in Illinois is kind of trash for what it is. Surprisingly, I don't really have many reactions when I'm on roller coasters. I'm pretty silent.
I guess my question to you is like, what's the most high-end roller coaster you've been on?
I would have to look at like what's at Six Flags because I've been on pretty much everything on Six Flags except like Vertical Velocity.
So have you been on anything that's like massive drops or massive speed or
So I mean Six Flags
long-term times upside down.
Yeah, I can handle those roller coasters, but like. Okay. I for whatever reason I like the stuff in between the roller coasters to keep you entertained. You know, like Six Flags and Cedar Rapids. Like you're just in line waiting for the ride. There's nothing really for you to do unless you.
It depends on which ride you go to, but yeah, like there are a couple rides that I will just not. Like there's a ride at Cedar Point called the Dragster, and I probably won't even go on it just because I'm not willing to wait the 3.5 hours.
Yeah, and when you go to a Disneyland, Disney World, like even when you're in line for like 40 minutes, there's at least stuff happening. Usually, you're not just like stuck in a queue. So I gravitate.
But I don't consider anything at Disney I've never been to Disneyland, but I don't consider any rides at Disney to be slightly fearful.
I mean, they really just have like Space Mountain, but Space Mountain is mostly just because it's dark. Like you don't know what's going on, but you're only going like 40 miles per hour. And then like Tower of Terror or Galaxy Breakout or whatever it's called now. Like those are the only like crazy thrill rides. Everything else is kind of mundane in terms of thrills.
I don't really think there's anything at Disney that I feel like I gotta like sit on a chair, like on a stool, and strap myself in and then buckle myself from the bottom.
Yeah, no, the only ride that I've ever been freaked out at Disney is the Tower of Terror, because it's like, hey, you're gonna go in this big building and we're just gonna drop you. Like that's
so he probably wouldn't like the demon drop then.
I've been on the demon. It could be different though. There's a demon at Six Flags, but yeah, no, I've been on like the Superman one. I don't really like rides where your feet are dangling. Because those just freak me out, especially the Six Flags ones, because they don't.
There's a lot of those at Cedar Point.
But I have more confidence at Cedar Point because it's known for those rides that they like make sure, like, I don't know, the shrubbery around the roller coasters are nice and trim.
Oh, trust me, like there's rides that I just have this fear of like hitting my head, like going into a tunnel.
Yeah, the Batman ride at Six Flags in Illinois, I don't think they've had a landscaper go through at all ever, and you just see plants just going through the ride, and you're just like, I'm just tall enough that my leg could touch that branch. Yeah. I'm more into the theme over the amusement, but I'm not against like thrill rides or anything like that. Except Vertical Velocity, which is like a roller coaster at Six Flags that it just shoots you straight up and then it like loses like speed and then you just drop completely down. Like it goes up on a twist, like it's like a U, and then once you hit the top of the U, it just like drops you. Like that freaks me out.
The only rides that I have problems with are ones that mess with my inertia.
Yeah.
Like there's like, have you ever been on that one where you kind of like get stuck to, like you're in a cylinder and you get stuck to the wall and it's spinning you around and then like the floor comes.
I hate like carnival rides. but mostly.
Well, I won't even really consider this one to be like a carnival ride. I don't remember, but I mean, like, I feel like this was a staple at Cedar Point. But you got stuck to the wall by your inertia.
Yeah.
And
There's
it wouldn't tilt or or turn you, but it would just spin really fast, and then the floor would drop out from under you, and you're stuck to the wall because of like the G-force or whatever it's called, and see, my wife's telling me it was on Boblo Island, which was a theme park in Michigan and Canada partially. That's now no longer around, but
yeah, no, like that reminds me of like some of the carnival rides that you would see, because you would see like smaller.
But it shows
versions.
you how much that messes with me, because I probably haven't been on that ride in over 30 years.
Yeah.
Or at least 28. I don't know. What I'm at 38 tomorrow.
It's like that, or when you go to like a Cedar Point. I don't know if Cedar Point has it, but like every Six Flags has like, oh, here's the bungee cord stuff. I don't mess with that because everyone that works at like Six Flags are teenagers, and I don't trust a teenager to like do really well with a bungee cord.
Yeah. So, all right. Spotlight once again, Patreon episode for our baseball episode that we recorded for April, and keep an eye on the feed if you're subscribed. We're going to do a Mortal Kombat kind of deep dive. We'll see how that goes. It'll probably be just me more Michael explaining things to me that I didn't understand,
and horribly, because my Mortal Kombat stuff is dated and just slightly off.
And then Michael's new podcast endeavor that he has, the Every Movie Ever.
That's available everywhere. So just everymovieever.zone.
Every movie ever is everywhere.
Yeah, hopefully everywhere.
Yeah. So and then the social accounts, you can follow the main account on Twitter at Digital Days Pod. You can follow Michael's at the first MJC 1ST. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. Join our Facebook group. Join our Discord. You can Ben Palmer can just post things in the Discord group that you just want to buy.
He's our own Wario, but he's a little bit more clickbaity
on purpose.
Yeah, he's a little more focused, I guess.
Yeah. And there's other conversations going on in there, depending on the news. Sometimes there's more in Discord than others. Facebook group is kind of where it's at with a lot of our community. Lots of discussions around Returnal, lots of discussions of just gaming pictures and people just having fun, just having conversations on there. Both of those links are in the description. And Patreon, obviously, like we talked about, patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming. $1 tip jar, $3 Discord, private channel access, $5 24-hour early access to the show, $7 is the bonus content episodes that we talked about. Other than that, I don't have anything else. You got anything?
No. Well, we'll just talk shit about Coach next week. We'll have more on Returnal and maybe some Mass Effect talk from me. We'll see how that goes. I plan to pick it up, but it's a matter of like how far I get in Returnal that I can be satisfied leaving Returnal for Mass Effect.
Yeah, real quick, Resident Evil Village coverage probably will be non-existent from either one of us right now.
No, I want to pick it up, but Sarah won't play it, and I'm chicken, so like I don't know if I'm gonna get that.
Yeah, so
I asked her. I was like, Sarah, can you play Resident Evil Village for me? And she was like, no. So
the people that I've seen that have played it love it, and there's a lot of people that there's tons of Twitch streams of it, and so it sounds like it's something really good. But just the super scary part of Resident Evil just isn't my cup of tea. I really enjoyed like Resident Evil 5 and 6, but kind of tapped out after that. So, all right. I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.